Hey there guys, and welcome back to episode 2 of RGA, or otherwise known as RuneScape's Greatest Achievements. In today's episode, we'll be covering one of the best 50 attack pures to ever exist, going by the name of Dragon 457334. If you had happened to have missed the previous episode, the basic premise around this series is to showcase some of the game's most intricate achievements, those that aren't justifiably covered for the sheer difficulty of the particular feats that they've overcome. In today's episode, we'll cover Dragon's journey towards the goal of perfection among his class, and exactly how he's done so, up to the point where he is today. Now, Dragon began his journey on Oldschool Runescape around the Christmas holidays in early 2016. During this time, game knowledge was still considered in its infancy, and in saying that, it will be forever advancing. However, at the time, Untrimmed Slayer was an accomplishment that had yet to be achieved on a pure at such a low combat, and it had taken some serious calculations at the time to conclude where he'd use certain attack styles to mitigate the most amount of experience. Remember, this was well before the abusive Partner Slayer had reached the ears of most players, so Dragon needed to split his attack styles amongst the Slayer monsters that he was assigned. To start off, Dragon would have to manually slay with Mage and a cannon all the way up to 75 magic to make sure that no experience was wasted. This was a slow and tedious process as he had no access to any other spellbook, so he had to rely on fire spells all the way up to 75. Once reaching 75 Mage, Dragon had a little bit more room for movement, as the Trident is half the experience of a regular spell, meaning that he could do double his estimated XP from this point forward. Which at the time was huge, as most players only thought that Untrimmed Slayer was achievable through the use of all combat styles. Between the use of the Trident on certain farcastable tasks, Dragon would use melee for monsters assigned by Vanica to mitigate the amount of experience wasted, giving him more leeway for bossing in the future. Up till this point, Slayer was calculated quite meticulously, until the discovery of Partner Slayer, which opened many more doors than you could ever imagine. I had briefly covered Partner Slayer in one of my previous speedrun series a few years ago, though the premise behind it was that you could pick and choose exactly what Slayer tasks you could receive, and whatever Slayer Master you wanted. People soon realized that you could make a Slayer ult with a specific set of quests completed in order to optimize Slayer, so much so that you could break it down to a science. And fortunately for Dragon, he was and still is a respected member of Limited CC, where he was privy to this information well before it was publicized. With access to any master came with the benefit of Slayer bosses, which gave you the option to kill 3 to 35 of the designated monster. This, in conjunction with having the ability to remove the check of your combat level from the Slayer Master, meant that you could kill as little as 3 of the NPCs and receive the bonus of 5k Slayer experience. As you can see up above, this is an example of a Slayer ult. 3 skips through 150 quest points used to block the tasks of the highest weight from the particular master. For example, Horror from the Deep and Dragon Slayer have been left incomplete to remove both Dagonoths and dragons from the weighted rolls when receiving a task. Furthermore, this was only broken down even further by some of the members of Limited CC, shortly after the release of Partner Slayer on the 7th of May, 2015. Those very few people who were privy to this information would all agree that it was one of the best kept secrets in RS history, lasting over 3 years before its patch. The old Slayer interface had a remote dialogue trigger from an alternate account, which had such a high priority queue that you could simply just sit behind this interface. And if you didn't want the task given to you by your ult, you could simply just click out of the interface. Finally, if you wanted the task, you'd continue the dialogue, resulting in the ability to determine exactly what task you want and whenever you want. In regards to Dragon, this meant that he could not only pick and choose what tasks he needed, he could also manipulate them in a way where he could spread out his experience evenly, meaning that he'd never run the risk of over-leveling. To put this into perspective, Dragon was so meticulous with his combat spread that he'd even do his Tazar tasks as One Prey Fire Capes to receive the bonus EXP rewards. For the following 18 months or so, Dragon kept up with his Slayer grind with a hiatus here and there through the odd months, doing boss Slayer and typically taking things slow and steady. Although he was getting quite fed up towards the end of his grind, as all the boss Slayer heavily dipped into his bank, as he was one prayer and restricted himself to Untrimmed Slayer, as every Dragon arrow shot was subsequently lost. After an impressively long and tedious journey, garnering both a number of pets and all but one champion scroll, Dragon managed to achieve what nobody else had done before. 99 Slayer, untrimmed at as little as 71 combat, the lowest combat ever achieved at the current time. After this monumental achievement, Dragon had absolute freedom. He could finally do as he liked as he had no more combat restrictions. He didn't need to worry about XP conservation anymore. This meant that he could both finish off skilling 99s and continue formulating his own specific methods for taking on certain bosses with one prayer. And you may be wondering how he kept a hold of his Untrimmed Slayer cape, which can be achieved through multiple different avenues. You have your more conventional methods where you drop the capes in free to play and then simply receive the 99, then telegrab the capes. Or you can simply store your untrimmed capes in a multitude of different death storages as seen up above. Following this revelation at the time, Dragon death storaged 28 capes and moved on to complete various 99s on the way towards the eventual goal of 2000 total. In between this goal, Dragon's true enjoyment was found in pet hunting, and with added restrictions of one prayer, it made theory crafting for new methods individual to himself quite fruitful. And now that Dragon has 99 range, his cape perk acts as an accumulator, making most projectile bosses financially realistic. To kick things off, following the pets garnered through Partner Slayer, Dragon hopped between a number of different bosses throughout the following months. Now, the first on the list was the Corporal Beast. Dragon wanted to start off with a bang, and with no realistic expectation of actually getting the pet, he theory crafted his own method utilizing 2 to 3 ults. As you can see in the clip above, each kill lasted approximately 7 minutes, which were initiated by paying the 200k fee to open a collective instance. Firstly, he'd spec down the stats with the ults, rinse and repeat, to the point in which the corpse stats were sufficiently lowered in order to out DPS the ults using both a trident and a cannon. And fortunately for Dragon, this only ended up taking him 215 kills, equating to a 30-hour odd grind. At 73 combat, Dragon managed to achieve his very first S-tier pet, using his own method cultivated by himself, and if you think that's impressive, there is just more and more to come. After acquiring the Corporal Beast pet, Dragon set his eyes onto his following goal, and Zolra would be the next to overcome. Within the limited community, there are a select few players that have gone through the trouble to actually learn this method, and once learnt, I myself would say it's arguably easier than brute forcing it with prayer. Dragon began his kills with T-bow only, but soon realized that he could increase the median speed per kill by utilizing Mage. To make things a little easier, when doing Zolra without prayer, you do either phase 1 or 2. The goal here is to complete the kills before the rotation is complete. Otherwise, it'll re-roll 1 of 4 rotations, making it a little bit more tricky. Using either phase 1 or 2 will help ensure the most amount of safe spottable phases. If you run into 3 or 4 when trying to set up, you'll simply have to relog, rinse, and repeat. Each kill took around 2 to 3 minutes, though you'll have to add on the extra time taken to actually preset the rotation. This grind ended up taking Dragon approximately a year and a half, playing on and off while garnering over 1,500 kills, all while having the restriction of 1 prayer. Dragon had truly put in the time, and actually got incredibly lucky along the way with quite a significant amount of collection log slots being filled. And with all that said, he most certainly got what he deserved. Following another massive achievement, Dragon continued to work on and off on skilling towards that 2000 total, all while getting a couple pets along the way. Throughout the next few months, Dragon had set his eyes on a new goal, and he was going to go for another pet. The problem was that most of the seemingly easy bosses weren't quite so simple for this particular build. Dragon liked doing things the hard way. He enjoyed conceptualizing things that hadn't yet been done before. Sure, there were many roadblocks, but at the end of the day, there is always room for improvement. He and a few others within his category, most notably Garp and 31 Prey by the way, all poured their resources together to improve their methods and form a likewise information chain. They collectively derived the same enjoyment out of restricted PvM and all sought after pets that were inconceivable to most, which led to a number of great accounts I'm sure you'll see here in the future. As you can see on screen above, Dragon has 3 ults to soak most of the damage from the Sarachnis spawn and provide support with BGS specs. And this is all backed up with a DPS calc on each account to ensure that Dragon gets the drop every single time. Over the following year, Dragon was steadfast in his goals, and he hopped around a number of different bosses in which he had to utilise ults for. By the 24th of October 2020, Dragon had already made headway on one of the more controversial pets like the Hell Puppy, which at the time was safe spottable by the use of an ult, blocking the render distance of your account, practically making the boss AFKable. In spite of all this, he wanted to step up even further and cultivate a method for the Dagannoth trio, one of the most difficult selection of pets you could realistically go for. To start things off, Dragon would head down on his tank to pull the aggression of both Prime and Supreme. While keeping a fair distance from Rex, he'd kill Supreme to let the Pure down the ladder in order to set up correctly. The second ult would be situated for setup by Rex, splashing to hold the dominant aggression during the rundown. And as I mentioned before, once in position, the first ult already has the dominant aggression upon entry, meaning that now he has the ults in his designated positions, Dragon can reap the benefits of many more kills per hour with little to no supply usage. Without wasting any time, once Prime is down, he'll jump right onto Rex to re-heal what little damage the Spinnerlips have dealt to him. Now, I've also done my due diligence to let you know that this isn't the only method. You can also manipulate the ladder by de-aggroing for 10 minutes, then use the ladder as a damage nullification by climbing down, firing a projectile at the NPC, and heading back up the ladder. Each time you go back up the ladder, the Dagannoth will lose aggression, meaning that you can freely fire one shot every cycle. Dragon prefers an ulting strategy as it adds an exponential amount of kills per hour, and any time save you can get on a restricted account, you take. With an incredible amount of effort and sheer luck, Dragon actually managed to get one of the trio, and fortunately for him, it was one of the most unexpected, being the Dagannoth Prime. I suggest you remember the name, Dragon 457334. In this episode, we barely broke the ice into his account, and there is so much more to this than meets the eye. So much so that I'll be making a second episode dedicated to his specific discoveries within the coming future. I have to respect the fact that some methods and achievements would preferably not be shown on video due to the volatility of certain mechanics and the spread of information. Thus, a lot of the footage provided will be held on an external hard drive ready to use in the near future. Dragon's account is a part of the upper echelon, and he has the backing of limited CC. With all of his feats and achievements that you've witnessed today and more to come in the future, he will go down in history as one of the most intelligent players of all time. If you guys enjoyed today's video and would like to do your part in helping me improve my videos and sound quality, simply drop me a like and a subscription. That's literally all you need to do to give me a helping hand towards forever increasing the quality of my content. I always give the best that I can, and improving my sound tech I know I can do even better, so please do consider dropping me a subscription, it will make the difference. And most importantly, don't forget,
Mauler sends his regards.